Happy Pride Month, everyone! I'm celebrating it by talking about clone troopers.
Are you wondering if it's gay to have sex with your own clone? Because if it's between two consenting adults, who cares?
I know that I do this bit every time I talk about clones, but I can't help it because I love them a lot. The prequels and the media that tied into them were a big part of my childhood, and as I've grown older, my appreciation for them in these forms has grown as well. From the stoic badasses of the 2003 microseries, to the layered and developed characters from the Clone Wars, to the occasional moments when the Bad Batch actually decides to be well written for a change. I have every clone skin currently in Fortnite, I own a lot of LEGO clones, and someday I'll get around to finishing Republic Commando. I even have clone OCs I made as a kid that I've drawn a lot over the years. So at some point I was going to encounter the most controversial clone trooper in Star Wars canon. Sister is a clone trooper that I didn't know existed until she was brought up in a conversation about clone troopers that I had with some Star Wars fans. And since the topics that I'm terminally online about vary, she is one that I hadn't heard of prior. That right there is the key phrase that has made Sister a controversial figure. Sister is a transgender character. Needless to say, the Star Wars fanbase was split on reactions to this character. Some were very supportive of this character existing, while others were not. And I'll leave it at that since that's not what this video is about. If you're interested in hearing more about that topic, Eleanor Mueller of the YouTube channel Daughters of Ferrix made an excellent video defending the character's right to exist within the Star Wars canon. I will say that the video is heavily political since it uses Star Wars as a jumping off point to talk about history and current politics, whereas this video is mainly going to focus on the character herself. After reading the content that Sister is in, I felt like I wanted to make a video discussing not only my thoughts on her, but also ways that I think she could be improved in future appearances. Since I'm a white guy, I don't think my opinion holds as much weight as someone like Eleanor, who herself is trans. But I like the concept of Sister as a character, and I think she can be better if she's used differently. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at the character of Sister, her brief appearances in various prequel books, the problems I have with the way that she's handled, and my suggestions on how she could be improved in future ones. As of me making this video, Sister has appeared in 3 separate Star Wars books. She made her debut as a character in the 2022 young adult novel, Queen's Hope, which was written by E.K. Johnston, who you might recognize for writing the Ahsoka book. Queen's Hope is the final entry in a trilogy of books focusing on Padme Amidala and her handmaidens from the Phantom Menace to Attack of the Clones, with Queen's Hope taking place before and after the ending of that film. After her secret marriage, Padme is asked by her friends in the Senate to conduct a secret mission so they can get a good opportunity to see what the front line of the Clone Wars is like. In order for the mission to proceed, Padme calls upon her former handmaiden Sabi for assistance, and she takes a break from freeing slaves on Tatooine with this background extra from the Phantom Menace that Wikipedia says is called Captain Tonra, so she can pass as her one last time. While Padme and Captain Typho are helping people on the front lines with Jedi Master Sivad and Clone Commander Styx, while gathering information for the Senate, Sabi has to navigate the drastically changed political landscape of Coruscant. The plot lines focused on these two characters really make the book an engaging read, as you could see Padme starting to be spread thin before the Clone Wars even start, and Sabi coming to realize how much she doesn't know about Padme because she's closed her off. Especially because the way that she finds out about Padme's secret marriage is Anakin rolling up to Padme's apartment unannounced. The book ends with Sabi ultimately deciding to break off her working relationship with Padme, especially as her own mixed emotions about this have affected how well she can pass as her, but continues to free slaves with Tonra, and seriously, who is this guy? Wait. You're telling me that Richard Armitage, the guy who would go on to play Thorin Oakenshield, was in the Phantom Menace? I kid you not. A part of this book is the side plot of Elizabeth Swann and Thorin Oakenshield freeing slaves on Tatooine. Wait, what do you mean Beru Lars is also helping them? Something relevant to this video that I think Queen's Hope does very well is bringing depth to the background Naboo characters from the Phantom Menace that appear, especially Padme's handmaidens. Sabi obviously is the one who receives the most attention, as she is the secondary protagonist, but other handmaidens do get focus as well. Sache and her assistant Tioff are the point of view behind a subplot of Naboo renegotiating a bill that would affect how resources would be shared between it and its fellow planets during the event of the war reaching them. and Sache's wife Yane helps create Padme's wedding dress at the start of the book. Similar to how Ahsoka would take occasional breaks from the narrative to show key moments involving other characters, Queen's Hope does the same for the female characters that are relevant to its story and themes. Shmi Skywalker, Beru Whiteson Lars, Padme, and finally, Brea Organa. It may seem weird that I've spent a big chunk of this video about Sister talking about other characters from this book, and that's intentional, as she appears towards the end of a single chapter. After a brief skirmish with battle droids, Anakin encounters Sister commemorating the loss of 4 clone troopers by not only treating their bodies with respect, but setting up a small monument by placing their helmets under a nearby tree. Sister and Anakin have a brief conversation about her identity and her concern about whether or not clones with personalities would be accepted by the Jedi, which prompts the funniest dialogue exchange in the book.
The Jedi are all about transcending things. I don't think we can complain if you've transcended gender.
Transcended gender? We'll work on it, but I like where it's heading.
Because of the timing of this book, there's something so incredibly funny about the guy who is very accepting of this trans character being the same person who was talking about how much he likes the idea of dictatorships.
Well, if it works.
But after that, Sister does not appear again in the book. As of making this video, Sister has only appeared in 2 other books. The 2022 adult novel Brotherhood by Mike Chen, and the 2024 reference book Star Wars: The Secrets of the Clone Troopers by Mark Sumarek. Sister's appearance in Brotherhood makes sense. Both Mike Chen and E.K. Johnston worked together to make sure that you could read Queen's Hope and then immediately start Brotherhood as smoothly as possible. Brotherhood is intended to be that business on Cato Nemoidia that Obi-Wan mentions in Revenge of the Sith.
Well, you owe me one, and not for saving your skin for the 10th time.
9th time. That business on Cato Nemoidia doesn't count.
However, based on how briefly Sister appeared in Queen's Hope, I decided that instead of reading this book, I was just going to get an e-copy and do a word search. I ended up enjoying Queen's Hope even though most of it wasn't relevant for this video, but I'm not reading a 300-page book for a character who is likely only going to appear once. Sister and Anakin are briefly reunited in Chapter 21 when she informs him that Republic transports are ready to take supplies down to the planet Langston, and that they're waiting on him. Since the chapter is mainly about Anakin talking to another Jedi, Sister appears for even less time than she did in Queen's Hope. From its nature as a source book, Sister's appearance in The Secrets of the Clone Troopers was gonna be brief. The book is written as if it's Captain Rex documenting the history of clone troopers in the Star Wars galaxy, which includes a section where he mentions several of the notable clones that he's either met or heard of.
Hello, sister. It's me, Rex, from Star the Clone Wars.
Alongside Dogma and Hauser, Sister is given an evaluation by Rex.
When one of our kind expressed her gender identity differently than her fellow troopers, she feared she'd have to hide who she truly was inside. Fortunately, her brothers in the 7th Sky Corps gave her the name Sister as a constant reminder that she belonged.
What's notable about these 2 books is that they confirm Sister's appearance and what group of clones she's a part of. In Queen's Hope, aside from describing her as having long hair, Sister's never really described in detail. However, before the book's release, Johnston did share art that she commissioned from freelance artist Azuri Art of Sister's appearance. Both Brotherhood and Secrets of the Clone Troopers use this art as reference in both describing and depicting her. Something I do think is weird is that so far Sister has exclusively appeared in media where she would be in Phase 1 armor, so realistically, she should look like this. But I personally prefer Phase 2 armor, so it doesn't bother me that much. I think that the only problem that I have with Sister as a character is that for all the controversy that this character has stirred up, she doesn't really have a lot of it. Clones as characters can range in complexity, but it does kind of bug me a little that Sister doesn't have a lot going on. I do want to say that I do recognize the importance of her being in this book.
For what it's worth, I don't think Sister is a product of rainbow capitalism. At least, not simply. She wasn't marketed for either book that she showed up in, and she's barely appeared since. I think she's the creation of a very well-meaning cis ally who wanted to take a small opportunity to say, this type of person can exist in Star Wars, and so they should.
The fact that E.K. Johnston not only wanted to include her, but also that Lucasfilm was agreeable to her inclusion is a good step in the right direction in terms of how Star Wars handles representation. I also think the point that characters in these books are supportive of Sister is also an important thing to mention about her.
It's not that each clone, every single trooper, was invariably respectful and accepting of who Sister is. It's that the ones who cared recognized her vulnerability and supported her because of it.
I may have never met you, sister, but you're valid and based for being true to yourself.
I also like that her being trans naturally fits into the Clone Wars depiction of the importance of identity and individuality to clones in an army where they all look the same.
There's not much to look at here, sir. We all share the same face.
Deceive you, eyes can. In the Force, very different each one of you are.
But my feelings on Sister made a bit more sense when I read on Wikipedia that she was a pretty late addition to Queen's Hope. Something that I chose not to mention is that this book is pretty woke, and not just because Sister's in it. Sabi is bisexual, and the book takes her complicated feelings about Padme seriously, especially with the added aspect that Padme never told her about marrying someone who makes Sabi pretty uncomfortable. The awareness that the book has about how badly the romance in Attack of the Clones has aged is really nice, and also kind of funny when Sabe finally questions Padme about it.
Foreshadowing.
Sache and Yane are married as previously stated, Tioff is gender fluid, and Tonra was intended to be bisexual or pansexual, but this was ultimately dropped. Funnily enough, Sister is a trans character because Johnston rejected an idea to make Tioff transgender instead of gender fluid. While both characters have similar scenes where they discuss their relationship with gender, Tioff has a larger role in the story since she's a minor character in Sache's side story. Apparently, Sister almost replaced Styx as the clone that Padme interacts with, but since he's a run-of-the-mill cloned character, it makes sense that Johnston ended up dropping this idea, since it means that Sister would have had even less presence in the book. Plus, Styx is cool. I like the fan design that Johnston reposted of him. It feels weird that despite how many of the LGBTQ characters in the story have depth, Sister ends up having the least because of how the story was created. And speaking of Wikipedia, Sister's page does have a good amount of behind-the-scenes information about her creation, and the way that Johnston used her in the story. I think the story raised an interesting point about Sister's concerns about clones being accepted as individuals by the Jedi. It's a concept that a lot of clone characters have brought up.
We're just clones, sir. We're meant to be expendable.
Not to me.
It's a good scene for Anakin because it shows the difference between the kind and accepting person that he can be and the jealous douchebag he often is. But it does kind of make me feel like Sister is mainly there as a part of Anakin's story in this book. Sister isn't a perfect character in this story, but she has a lot of potential to become a great one, depending on what direction a writer ends up taking her. So in this section, we're going to discuss how I personally would redesign Sister and give some suggestions as to how this character could be used in future stories. I think it's fair to say that one of the big sticking points for Sister as a character is her armor. While I kind of agree that it's weird that the trans flag exists in Star Wars in the same way it exists in our world, Star Wars loves using all kinds of political imagery. This is the same universe where the main antagonists are space Nazis after all. However, I do agree with the point that Eleanor raises in her video about Sister.
Maybe the blue and pink is an individual aesthetic thing, maybe Sister's brothers cover for her taste. Or maybe her fellow clones give her those colors, like they gave her a name. Maybe it's they want to be aggressively supportive. They want to make it clear which one of them is Sister on the battlefield, so that they can properly gender her during battles. I don't know. Damn, guys, way to put a target on the trans person's back.
For those who don't know, the 7th Sky Corps is a part of the 212th Attack Battalion, which is the clone legion associated with Obi-Wan Kenobi. You most likely recognize them from Revenge of the Sith, the amazing animated short film by Hoplite VFX, or that one episode of The Clone Wars where they dogpile and punch Grievous. So the first part of the redesign is giving her the coolest 212th armor that isn't just one of the Special Forces armors, clone paratrooper armor. The pattern that Azuri art used for Sister's armor will be staying, but will be in the 212 colors, similar to the ones found in this panel from the 2022 Obi-Wan comic series. The little markings on her helmet that are similar to the Coruscant Guard and clones based off of them could stay because they look cool on this armor. The trans flag is obviously going to stay on her armor, but will be used as small patterns on her helmet's cheeks instead, similar to how a friend of mine decided to make a custom Sister minifigure. Since the pattern is different now, the question is how to convey that she's trans in a way that's equally recognizable. The obvious answer is to reference other things associated with trans people. The first thing that jumped to mind was Blahaj, the plush shark made by IKEA that is closely associated with trans people, and to make it extra based, make it a shark from the Old Republic. But it feels like something's missing. If only there was a video game that was closely associated with trans people for some reason. So a spade with 38 in Arabesh is going right into the center of the helmet.
Beautiful, ain't it? It's platinum.
As a final touch, I added Remember the Fallen in Arabesh on the left side of her armor. It's symbolic because she carries her fallen brothers in her heart. And boom! After bothering a friend who 3D models, we have a fresh new clone design. The easier part of this video, for me at least, is giving ideas for how to write Sister as a character in a way that makes her compelling. Something that I think would be a good step forwards is to feature her in visual media. She's mainly appeared in books, which is one of the reasons why Queen's Hope and Brotherhood emphasize the fact that she has long hair in order to show that she's a woman. I think that the easiest way to feature her is through content in the prequel era, especially since she originates from it. A 212th focus story could be a great way to showcase her alongside other characters from the Legion, like Cody, Waxer, Boyle, and Gregor. Another story that I think could be good is one about Sister's transition while she was still on Kamino. But due to the complex and personal nature of someone transitioning, that would best be handled by a transgender writer.
It'd be nice if less of the media landscape was cis people talking about us.
I think that a fun additional character trait would be having her be into sharks as animals. Maybe she visits local aquariums wherever the 212th go to look at the unique sharks on that specific planet. Maybe she talks about shark lore in the same way that Wolf probably talks about wolves. You don't have to limit her to only appearing in the Clone Wars, but I think that it's the easiest way that you could feature her. Personally, the only way that I think that she should be featured in the original trilogy era is as a member of Rex's clone rebellion. Based on how clones are treated as a whole by the Empire, something tells me that they'd find a way to be a lot worse to Sister for some reason. But maybe I'm wrong! Rex, Wolf, and Gregor survived up to the start of A New Hope and beyond, so maybe Sister is out there somewhere. Maybe she's opened her own shark aquarium. The possibilities are endless if you have an imagination. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Sister and how I think she could be improved. If you enjoyed this video and would like to learn more about what an actual trans person thinks about Sister, I recommend the Daughters of Ferrix video on her, even though it's a bit of a longer watch. I know that this was a different kind of video compared to what I normally make, but if you like it, please let me know in the comments below. I also wanted to say thanks to my trans friends who proofread the script to make sure I didn't say anything offensive. But to cap things off, I just wanted to say thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Wait, there's something I'm forgetting to say in this video. Oh yeah, trans rights are human rights.